Happy to be here.
Great to have you here, Preston. I think I first came across your work in Atlantis Rising when I first recognized the name, and great to have you on the show today. We're going to talk about your latest book, UFOs over Nevada. I haven't said much about the book. It says it all itself, really, but this is, staggering when I've, come across this, and I realize how much federal land is in Nevada, known as the Silver State. Tell us a little bit about this as a premise, first of all. This is incredibly interesting, just on its own.
Right, yeah, it really surprised me. When I started writing this book, I knew that there was a lot of federally owned land in Nevada, but it turns out it's got more federally owned land than any other state in the United States. And I was shocked it was actually 86%. Now, which is, most of it. So this obviously, I think, has an effect on how, UFOs, are perceived in that state. For example, I did UFOs over California, another book, and UFOs over New York, and found that each state kind of has its own flavor, if you will, and its own way of kind of dealing with the whole UFO phenomenon. And Nevada, boy, it's definitely unique in that regard.
Why does such a high percentage of government-owned land? Is it just prime real estate for clandestine activities? Is it like desert land? Is it perfect?
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail exactly on the head. Nevada is a very desert area, and at one time it was extremely remote. And this is why I think Area 51 is located in Nevada. I mean, well, we know this is true, because it's a very, very remote area. And, by the way, Area 51 is extremely large. I think much larger than most people realize. It takes up an enormous amount of space. And, what we have is a situation where, most of Nevada is being owned by federal land, means that the population of Nevada is kind of restricted to just a few major city centers. So in terms of UFOs, what we have is a lot of military encounters. And conversely, when people see UFOs, it's pretty much over or outside of, Las Vegas or one of these other major cities, or also driving down these lonely desert highways. Got a lot of accounts of people encountering UFOs while driving late at night through this desert area.
Tell us a little bit about the MUFON activity that you do. For those not familiar with MUFON, give us a little backdrop to that and how you got involved with MUFON.
Right. I actually was skeptical of UFOs and anything paranormal for that matter, and heard a report on the news about this sighting over Alaska and didn't believe it for a second. This was way back in 1986. And I thought, well, this pilot's lying. He's hallucinating. He's certainly not seeing a UFO. The report on the news was very tongue-in-cheek. They kind of joked nervously about it and didn't say much else. I found out later there was radar returns and quite a bit of evidence to support this case. Numerous witnesses on board the craft, on ground. So, I knew none of this, but it interested me enough to start asking my friends and family, people I worked with, what they thought of this ridiculous pilot. And I got a real shock. I have to tell you, James, this was not good news. I found out that my brother had seen a UFO. My sister-in-law saw a UFO with her friends. I had a couple of friends who had missing time, coworkers who had seen UFOs, one who also had missing time. So it really hit home for me, and this is how I got involved. I started picking up books looking for an explanation. And the books pretty much said that UFOs were real. I still couldn't believe it. So I started interviewing people, joining UFO groups, and found MUFON, which is the Mutual UFO Network. It's the largest citizen UFO group in the United States, with several thousand members. And I took a field investigator test eventually, and I became a field investigator for them, and just kind of snowballed from there. Before I knew it, I was writing articles for newspapers and magazines, appearing on radio, put together my first book, and just have not looked back.
Tell us about the Alaska case. What was so significant about that drew your attention? I'm sure there was many UFO cases, but why the Alaskan case? Why did that grab your attention so much?
You know, I'm not exactly sure. It turned out it was a very major case. It's one every year. I think there's maybe one or two or three or four cases that are just so big that they do get media coverage. The vast majority don't, obviously, but this one did, and that surprised me because this was on the evening news, and you know, I had never really heard that before. You know, I'd heard a few UFO reports throughout the years on, you know, paranormal programs and things like that, but never really on the evening news. I was a pretty young man at the time as well, you know, like early 20s. So, I don't know. It just really grabbed me, cause this was a serious pilot. He was a commercial pilot. And, again, the news report was tongue in cheek, but when I found out about it, the entire case, wow, you know, it turned out to be a really huge case. So it was just really the luck of the draw. I made the mistake, I think, of asking the people I knew. And, that's where it kind of took a left turn into the twilight zone.
Mm. Do you find anything has changed today, Preston, when, you know, they still are tongue-in-cheek in the news? Is it like there's a sniggering or smarmy attitude, or when they report the cases, has it changed?
A little bit, I'd say. Not a whole lot, though. When it comes to the evening news, the UFO reports are generally very brief. And again, there is that kind of joking attitude to it. But on the other hand, I think in terms of change, what we are seeing now is a lot more UFO programs on television and on the radio, and, you know, programs like yours. And so I think the subject is getting more and more popular. I'm pretty sure the UFOs are not going to be going away anytime soon. Sure. So we're kind of stuck with them. And it's a phenomenon that's just building and building. So I think, yeah, it's pushing more and more towards the mainstream. And no, it's not on the evening news a lot, but for that matter, most people aren't really turning to the evening news for news. The evening news is all about Britney Spears and the latest sex scandal, or, you know, politics and things like this. Most people are turning to the internet, sure, I think, for their information. Sure. And I think that's why.
Yeah, I think that's true, Preston. I think people go to the evening news and it's like an old school mindset. And, you know, if anybody wants the news now, they go straight to YouTube or the internet and they get it live. They get exactly what they want.
Right. Yeah, I'm excited about it too, because it's much harder to, you know, keep this information covered up. And from what I understand, UFOs are extremely popular on the web. You know, I believe it's the second most popular subject that's searched for, you know, second to sex, of course. But
Wow. I didn't even know that was a statistic, Preston. Wow. Tell me why the dedicated book for Nevada. Is Nevada, you know, is it worthy of it? Obviously there's, you know, Area 51, there's big cases like Roswell. They all get the attention. The Area 51 gets the attention. But tell us why the dedicated book for Nevada.
Yeah, well, it's kind of following up this series of books I'm writing. The first being UFOs over California. And after that, I did UFOs over New York because I thought it was a very important state and has made a lot of contributions to the UFO phenomenon. And same with Nevada. That's why I think, you know, with the Area 51 complex, what's going on there really has become a major tourist attraction for UFOs and kind of a focus for the entire world, really. People travel there looking for UFOs. So it's become, you know, pretty famous in that regard. And Nevada's got a lot of other famous cases as well. I mean, there's a really well-known UFO crash that occurred there, which hasn't got a whole lot of attention. Certainly Roswell has. And, you know, there's a few others. You know, Kecksburg, Pennsylvania got some attention, and Aztec, New Mexico. And there was one down in Arizona. But I don't think people realize how many UFO crashes there really are. So far I've found them in every single state that I've, you know, written a book on. And my guess is they're in every state. And Nevada has a big one.
Well, then tell me what makes Nevada's UFO encounters different from the other states then.
Well, the first major difference I found was a lot of military encounters, particularly over military bases. So that was something that I found out right away. And another thing which I found was really curious was that people were seeing large numbers of UFOs. You know, in the average UFO case, it's 1, 2, maybe 3 or 4 craft or objects or, you know, lights, what have you. In the Nevada cases, I found quite a number of cases involving 10 or 20 objects. So I don't know exactly what that means, but it was something that, you know, certainly turned up. I noticed it. Another thing I noticed was, that a lot of, as I mentioned earlier, cases involving cars driving along highways late at night. Probably 10, 20, 30 cases like this where UFOs, and I still can't figure out this behavior where these objects come swooping down, you know, out of the sky, right over these cars, sometimes scaring the wits out of these people, pacing them down the highways, even landing in front of them on the road, basically, you know, playing this kind of cat and mouse game. These kind of cases, I think, are pretty familiar to UFO researchers. But boy, Nevada takes the cake. It's got a bunch of them, and some really bizarre ones as well. And another thing I noticed, and this really surprised me, was how brave or, you know, brazen some of these UFOs are. Generally speaking, I think UFOs' behavior is, you know, they're elusive. You know, they don't necessarily want to be seen. They dart around, they're flying around late at night. You know, we don't have a whole lot of sightings where there's involving thousands and thousands of witnesses who watch objects for, you know, a period of hours. But I found in Nevada that they're coming right over the city sometimes. There's a number of cases where people are seeing these things right over casinos. And, you know, it goes beyond that. And I know how this is going to sound, but there are about 10 cases where people claim to have seen these ETs, if you will, inside a casino. Yeah, the bizarre, right? But I mean, when you read 1, 2, then 3 cases. I mean, here's a typical case. This guy was on the Las Vegas Strip, you know, taking pictures, and he sees these objects way up in the sky, and there's other people looking at him too. And he's actually able to snap a couple of pictures of this object. And later that evening, he's in his hotel room in Circus Casino, and he's woken up in the middle of the night because he hears someone in his bathroom. You know, he's alone. This is, you know, impossible or very unlikely. And so he gets up and tries to open the bathroom door, and who's ever in there is holding the door closed and won't let him open it. Finally, you know, he rips it open, and tumbling past him, you know, at high speed are 4 or 5 very short figures. He didn't get a great look at them because they were moving extremely fast, he said, much faster than a normal person could move, except that they were very short. They appeared to be dark and wearing some sort of shield-like things, and basically ran across the room and through the wall and disappeared. He links it to his, you know, UFO sighting, which he had just had, you know, hours earlier. But certainly a weird case, and not the only one like that. So I'm not quite sure what to make of that.
When's the first Nevada case on record? When's the very first encounter?
You know, the earliest one I could find actual reference to occurred in 1897 when 2 police officers reported a glowing figure moving, you know, through the area. Now, this wasn't exactly, I mean, it was a little bit ambiguous. Can't be sure this was an ET or a ghost or what have you, but I don't know. I'd found another case, not nearly as early, but definitely predating the modern age of UFOs, which occurred on July 26th, 1931. And this is when a number of people in the Las Vegas area saw a meteor-like object. And they thought it was a meteor, and this is how it was labeled, except a number of witnesses reported that the object slowed down and turned and also made a noise, a low buzzing noise, and a number of other, you know, small details that you normally associate with UFOs. So I know the activity is been going on there quite some time. Probably the earliest reference comes from there's a gentleman, Charles Hall, who's written a series of books about his encounters in Nevada. And he says that the local Indians have a number of legends about this and about seeing figures, and these stories date back, more than 100 years. A couple hundred years, in fact.
Charles Hall on at the end of the month, actually, Preston. I'm looking forward to that show. Be interesting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's got an amazing story. Yeah. And his case took place in, the Nevada Area 51 complex. So, he's definitely got some indications that encounters have been occurring there for a very, very long time.
We're just coming up to break, so just for the webpage, you can go to capricornradio.com for the free archives and capricornmembers.com for the HD TV and MP3 archives. But for now, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back in just a moment. Greetings, everybody. I got a quick announcement about a very unique conference coming up in Mexico with yours truly, James Swagger, and my good friend, Mr. Gerald R. Clark. You'll find all the information on the web pages, geraldclark77.com and jamesswagger.com. A little bit about the conference. In the Yucatan, the Anunnaki realm of the Maya, Equinox Ascension Symposium, September 2015, and of course, we're going to link that up on the websites, geraldclark77.com and jamesswagger.com and capricornradio.com, and you'll find all the links there on all the web pages. And this is going to be unique for me to do this, Gerald, and unique for you too. I know, great to put our minds together and to put a venue on and talk about this stuff in a practical sense, where people can come and join and learn, philosophize, and also ascend, Gerald. So,
yeah, well, I'm really, really excited about it. Yeah, listen, and the fact that we're having this level of dialogue couldn't be possible unless you were doing what you're doing. I very much appreciate you being a student of the information and seeking to understand.
Well, understanding is the key to everything I do, Gerald. All the philosophy I look at and all the research that I do, it's all for understanding. Of course, coming across your two books, The Anunnaki of Nibiru and the most recent Seventh Planet Mercury Rising, it ties so many things together for me. Of course, I'm going to be speaking at the conference myself. I'm going to be on site. I'm going to be doing a little bit of the tour as well. And what I'm going to speak about is the global megalithic culture. Archaeoastronomy, I'll focus on the Maya. Archaeoacoustics, I'll also focus on the Maya. Altered states, ancient cultures and awareness. Sacred science and geometry. Entheogens versus acoustics in altered states. Processional numbers and numerology. Megalithic sexadecimal codex. And Sumerian sexadecimal number system. Again, the Anunnaki realm of the Maya Equinox Ascension Symposium. That's going to happen in September 2015 on the equinox, obviously, finishing on the equinox event at the Pyramid of Kukulkan in Chichen Itza. Of course, we're going to tie in your Anunnaki Nibiru connection with Quetzalcoatl, Chichen Itza, the long count calendar with Egyptian origins, Ascension Temple. The Emerald Tablet connection to the Mexico's pyramids that we talked about on this show, holographic state of reality, presenting models for that, keys to breaking the illusion of matter, the Tolkien calendar, again what we talked about in galactic timing. It's going to be super fascinating presentation, Gerald, on your part. I can't wait for.
Yeah, the people that are coming will have their own private entrance gate to go right to the temple, so there'll be some hands-on stuff. Go and experience it for yourself, not just be looky-loo. We're gonna tie in the deep knowledge of our history with part of it that's spilled over there. And listen, I've started getting issues about who are the gods in the Viking in this culture, and I'm starting to do that because this is true for everyone around the world. So yeah, the Mayans are going to wake up to find out that Quetzalcoatl was the mankind's consciousness coach and the author of the Emerald Tablets, and that's a profound thing to realize.
Well, again, Gerald, I'm so excited about this whole thing. The conference, the location, the venue, the place we're going to stay at has its own access into the archaeological complex, and the transfer of knowledge, the networking with the people there, and of course the meditation. It's just going to be a wonderful 5 days. Of course, everybody can check this all out in the YouTube description. Follow the links there. Or of course, if you want any more questions, contact us. But I think everything is on the page for the symposium. So, welcome back to Capricorn Radio. This is your host James, and don't forget to check out the archives at capricornmembers.com. You can subscribe for membership, doing a lifetime membership deal at the moment. And of course, you can still check out the free archives at capricornradio.com. And then HDTV shows as well on the Capricorn members page. But for now,
let's focus on Area 51. It's obviously the big one. If you're going to get into any UFO research, you're going to inevitably come across Area 51. I mean, it's this, any of this attention is just not going away. I mean, there's obviously something clandestine going on there, and it's not just experimental aircraft as they make out, but where is the attention at today on Area 51? Do we know that it's been relocated? Some people say it's been relocated to, they dub it now Area 52 as a nickname, but it's somewhere in another state, I believe. But is it being decommissioned?
Well, I've heard that, but what I can tell you is that Area 51 is still active. You can't drive up there. They will shoot at you. The use of deadly force is authorized. It's restricted airspace. It's still very active. And if some of the stuff has been moved, well, that wouldn't surprise me at all, because there are numerous bases, throughout the United States and the world that have been implicated with, reverse engineering UFOs. Certainly there's a number of them in California, and other places as well. So I don't think if it's been moved, I don't think it makes much of a difference either way, because stuff is still going on there. And what I found, in terms of UFOs, a large number of the sightings people are having, in the Nevada area, are on the outskirts of Area 51. Mm-hmm. So yeah, dozens and dozens of cases. And, in fact, lots of people have gone there and actually, for the express purpose of seeing a UFO, and have been wildly successful. I know someone who went out there dozens of times and had dozens of sightings. It was particularly active, back in the 80s and 90s. And the activity was actually predictable. I think the real question is all this stuff ours? Or is some of this ET, or is it a mixture of both?
Mm. How do you feel, Preston? Do you think it's a mixture of both?
I do. Certainly I think the stuff that's going on directly over Area 51, I'm pretty darn sure that's us flying them around, and that's what the evidence is telling us, and that's what the testimonies are coming out. But there are a lot of cases where you have these objects flying down the highways and military jets are chasing them. Not escorting them, they're, chasing after them. So clearly they're not all ours. And when you look at the number of cases where these things have, landed and ETs have gotten out, well, how do you explain that? Here's a really interesting case, that makes me think that they're not ours, because this occurred in February of 1952, and this is actually over Nellis, which is Area 51. This comes from a gentleman inside Area 51, who said that in February of 1952, his office, at the control tower there, was flooded with, or got a call that Las Vegas was being flooded with UFO calls from the police, and they were calling him to see if he had anything in view or any indication of any unusual activity. And he's like, no, we don't see anything. We have nothing in the air right now. And, but they kept looking out at this point, to look for it. And it was just a few minutes later when they see this object come from the Las Vegas area, heading north over Nellis, and it comes in, it, hovers there over the runway, stops at about 200 feet altitude, and just stays there for 20 minutes, causing quite a bit of alarm there, in the control tower, and eventually just moves off. And well, get this case. This is one of my favorite cases, and just really amazing. This was actually during a high altitude test flight in 1962. And, pilot was, up there flying his, aircraft at about, 200,000 feet, way high up there, moving, thousands miles per hour, when he sees a number of craft appear around his plane. He's driving his X-15, and he sees these two disc-shaped objects come swooping down and kind of take formation around his plane and pace him for a little while. And he was actually able to get gun camera footage of these things, and which he turned over to authorities upon landing.
Wow.
And but yeah, it's an amazing case, and there was a repeat of it a few months later on July 17th on another high altitude test flight, this time at 314,000 feet, when again an X-15 pilot was over Edwards Del Mar Lake, in Nevada. And he saw 6 of these objects appear again in formation around his aircraft. He said they were perfectly white and paced his aircraft. He said he couldn't count them all. There was at least 6, possibly 10, and just paced him there for quite some time and then took off. So I think what's happening here is they're kind of keeping tabs in our technology. And clearly this is not us.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. This doesn't sound like it's our technology interacting with ourselves, It doesn't make sense. How much of the nature of it is like that? Do you see cases where that could be our technology, or is the majority of the cases sound like, you talk about UFOs terrorizing people on the highways. Again, that doesn't sound like our technology. I don't think if we had a clandestine technology, and I'm sure we may do, or reverse engineer some of this stuff, I don't think we would have it perfectly reverse engineered to the true original model. But, even if we did have something, I don't think we'd go around terrorizing our own people on highways.
God, I hope not. Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think you're right, because these objects are swooping right down over cars, sometimes within, 10, 20 feet. Here's a bizarre case. This guy's driving along, a Nevada highway, pulls over in his pickup truck because he sees this object, pacing his car, and, he's standing there on the highway. When it starts to move toward him, he freaks out, he gets a little frightened, jumps back into his car and, revs the engine and tries to, get out of this area, when he realizes he's not moving. And he looks out his window and the UFO is directly above his truck. And looking down, he sees his truck is now floating about 5 feet above the ground. And this is called a car lift case, and sounds unusual, but there's a number of them in the literature. Probably the most famous is the Knowles family on the Nolenbar Plain there in Australia. But there's I don't know how many cases, 10, 20, 30. I've investigated a number of them personally. But this was one of them. And the next thing he knows, it drops his truck and takes off, and so does he. Just a bizarre case. And if this is us doing that, well, we're in trouble. Because that's just unthinkable. No, I don't. The vast majority of cases, I think, are ETs. But that's not to say that all of them are, particularly over and around military bases. I think you have to be careful. And, we don't know who are in these craft, because some of the BTs look perfectly human. So they could be military masquerading as ETs, which is, not out of the realm of possibility. But when you're talking about some inside a military base where, there are military personnel watching these craft, yeah, we know that some were reverse engineering this stuff, and we are flying them around. Certainly some of the cases are ours. But like you said, I doubt we're going to do test flights of these craft over dense populated areas. I just can't see. That's not how it's done. So some are, but the vast majority, no, they're ETs, in my opinion.
Las Vegas lights and, let's say, Area 51, I mean, are these like attractions to these guys up there? I mean, the lights, obviously, I mean, they say the Belgian motorway as well is so lit up that you just can't miss it from space. It's like, it's a beacon. It's so, same for the Nevada lights, perhaps. I mean, is it the lights is the activity, or the military, or both? Is that what attracts these guys?
Ultimately, I think they're after people. They're very, very interested in us. But yeah, there is something to that as well. There are a number of cases in the literature where UFOs come swooping down when there's unusual light activity. And if there's any unusual light activity, well, Las Vegas is definitely the center of that. And I think this is evidenced by the large number of reports we do have of these objects hovering, directly over casinos. Probably 20, 30 cases like that. So there's something to that. I think, I don't know if they're flying by and they just want to take a little tourist drop like, everyone else, or what's going on. But yeah, I think there is something to that. And, I don't know if you've heard of Burning Man.
Oh yeah, Burning Man Festival.
Yeah, that's this festival that out in the Nevada desert, which takes place over, about a week or so.
I'd love to go. I've always wanted to go, Preston. It looks amazing. We have documentaries and we catch up on the news over here as well. It's like it's big in documentaries and stuff. We always catch a lead on it.
I've never gone. I've known some people who've gone. It's pretty wild, with the bonfires and all that. But yeah, they have this huge bonfire, and there's a couple of cases where this apparently attracted UFOs as well. It's funny because Burning Man Festival suddenly. That's like the third largest population center in Nevada for just that 1 week. It's like a city sprouts up overnight and then disappears, a week later. Mm-hmm. So it's a very unusual event for sure. And I think has attracted some UFO activity because of that. I think there is some evidence to see that UFOs are attracted to our military bases, like that high altitude test flight and just basically keeping tabs on what we're doing.
I wonder, is there anything interesting in the geology or the geography of the area, Preston?
Not that I could really find, it's pretty high in minerals, so there might be something to that. It's got a lot of gold and silver and copper and zinc and quite a bit. In fact, 33% of Nevada's economy is from minerals. And I have to tell you, I wrote an article about this, in fact, recently about UFOs hovering over mines. And there's a lot of mines in Nevada, and, I wouldn't be surprised if that is a draw for them, if that attracts them. But, I don't know. UFOs are attracted to a lot of different things. They hover over, high tension telephone wires. There's a lot of cases of them hovering over small bodies of water. A lot of cases of them being attracted to even graveyards, of all things, cemeteries. So, I think that there are certain things that draw them. And, Nevada it's very rich in minerals. So that could definitely be one of the things that's bringing them in there.
Obviously tough to answer this one for definite, but we can only speak on, other people's testimony or, cases and stuff. But what's going on inside Area 51 is the big question everybody wants to know. Do we know, can we say for sure anything about what's going on inside Area 51?
Well, we know for sure it exists. It's been officially documented, not that long ago. For a long time, the government even refused to say that it exists. But no, they have admitted that there is a base there. Officially, that it's used for testing, aircraft, normal conventional aircraft. And, we know nothing beyond that officially. But I think now, if you look into this, and, boy, I did. I was quite surprised to find out how much information and validation and corroboration, we have of what's going on in there. It's not just one person or two people. It's not just Bob Lazar, for example. Mm-hmm. I think, Area 51 was initially publicized, by Bob Lazar and, John Lear, and George Knapp, a Las Vegas journalist. And, what happened was Lazar was, invited to work there at the base, apparently, as a physicist, and given a high-level security clearance, and was taken directly to reverse engineer UFOs, he says. He says he saw 7 or 8 craft. He was only allowed to enter one of them. He says that he saw alien artifacts of various types, including a book which told about Earth's history from the point of view of the ETs, and a number of really mind-boggling things. And he started taking people to watch these UFOs from the outskirts of Area 51. And this is kind of how the story broke. More and more people started coming to watch these objects coming in and out of Area 51. And this became such a problem that the government actually purchased land around the area, trying to stop people from doing it. But they were not able to, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And more people started to come out of the woodwork, whistleblowers, I would call them, saying that, yes, I worked at Area 51, and yes, there's all kinds of things happening there involving UFOs and genetic research and a number of other different things. From the reports that are coming out, the Area 51 is vast. It's got multiple levels. The top levels, are used for probably the most simple types of research, but the deeper you go, it gets more and more, confidential and more deep in terms of the type of research that's going on, like genetics and germ warfare, reverse engineering, and a number of reports of ETs working with humans. Now, I know how this sounds, but there's a number of major UFO researchers like Wendell Stevens, George Knapp, Bill Hamilton, and others, John Lear, who have collected, George Knapp alone collected testimonies of some 20 to 40 Area 51 employees, all who have, a different piece of the puzzle of what's going on inside there. But here's what I found, a very interesting report, which came from an experiment run by Fate magazine, in which they asked their readers to psychically visit Area 51. And by that I mean, remote viewing or psychic impressions or even out-of-body astral travel type of thing. And they got a huge response. It was almost entirely women who responded, which I found kind of interesting. But they collected, a good dozen reports of people who got impressions of their visit to Area 51 going inside there. And this is what shocked me. They were very consistent. They all reported that there were multiple levels. They all reported that ETs were working with humans. A number of them reported that different types of research in terms of genetics and reverse engineering and this kind of thing. But what I found really shocking was something I had never heard before, and I don't think has come out in the UFO literature really. But at least 5 of the responders said the same thing. And that was that the employees who are working on the base in the most secret levels, directly with the ETs, have been genetically altered or modified their bodies so that their health is vastly improved and their aging process has been, slowed way down. And to the point where, some of them are just way different than the normal human. And, it wasn't just one person saying this. There was like 5 people who said the same exact thing. And I thought, wow, that's pretty unusual. That really surprised me.
Wow, incredible.
We're just coming up to break, so just for the webpage, you can go to capricornradio.com for the free archives and capricornmembers.com for the HD TV and MP3 archives. But for now, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back in just a moment. There is something majestic in the land of Ireland. This is known the world over. The Celtic Irish are descendants of the Tuatha De Danann, a mysterious, supernatural race of gods written about in ancient Irish Gaelic texts. This is the basis for all Irish mythology, and our megalithic ancestors are interlinked with these peoples. You have a chance to come and see these monuments and temples for yourself. The megalithic landscape is rich in the realms of myth, legend and wisdom. Come see all this on the most spectacular Sacred Sites tour in March 2016. The Sacred Sites and Equinox tour is not to be missed. Tour highlights include Grilling of Aillock Observatory, the Giant's Ring Henge and Dolmen, St. Patrick's Day Special at St. Patrick's Ancient Chair, March 17th, Knockmany Passage Tomb linked to the Queen Maeve with special access, Beemore Temple Complex, Dunluce Castle, the Giant's Causeway, Beltany Stone Circle, Kilclooney Dolmen, and the Loughcrew Equinox Event Alignment. Of course, we will see the famous tombs of Newgrange, Noth and Doth, also Fornox Rock Art and Shamanic Chamber, Tara Hill Complex, and we're going to finish at the Tua de Danan's origins in the northwest of Ireland at Carrowkeel, dated 3500 BC, and the famous Carrowmore 5000 BC complex. Check out all the full itinerary on the Tours Events page for more details at jamesswagger.com. Welcome back to Capricorn Radio. This is your host James, and don't forget to check out the archives at capricornmembers.com. You can subscribe for membership, doing a lifetime membership deal at the moment. And of course you can still check out the free archives at capricornradio.com. And then HDTV shows as well on the Capricorn members page. But for now,
there's something special about Nevada for sure, not just the Area 51, some of the cases, you know, I always think, Preston, how things play out, you know, if there was a crash and governments got involved with ETs, you know, I don't think it would be, you know, a buddy-buddy relationship and everybody works together like you would in a company. People have this kind of silly concept of how things are going to happen. You know, if a company networks with another company and then they all amalgamate and they produce products, and it wouldn't be like that, you know. If the ETs were going to help out with anything with the government here on Earth, they would be under duress to do it. They would be forced to do it, probably because they had a body, or, you know, they had some technology anyway, and the cat was out of the bag. But inevitably that's going to break down. Perhaps that's probably why there's some sort of a crossover of technology, or some sort of a crossover of knowledge, but I don't think it's going to be a full compliance is what I'm trying to make out.
Right. Yeah, well, we don't know what exactly is going on in that regard. And certainly I'm concerned that and we have the military. I found out a lot of the abductees that I've interviewed have military in their family. It's become a pattern that's kind of disturbed me. And there are a number of other reports of military and aliens working together, such as in the Rendlesham Forest incident, and as well as Edwards Air Force Base. There's a number of reports like that. You know, people working and cooperating with ETs. And it's my sense that they're the ones, the ETs, meaning who are holding the power, who, you know, can come and go as they please. And we're the ones who are kind of, you know, in a position of trying to deal with them more than, you know, them dealing with us. But, you know, it's hard to say. There's a number of rumors in the UFO circles, you know, kind of right there at that, you know, it gets really murky at this point about what's going on. But in terms of possibly some sort of deal being struck with the ETs, where we allow them, the military, meaning military allows ETs to abduct innocent citizens, and they give us some of their technology, feeding it into our society and giving us some of their craft to play around with. Now, I don't know if this is true or not, obviously, but there are a lot of reports of this coming out. And so you have to begin to wonder. And right now, this cover-up is a complete disaster. It's leaking at the sieve. There's a huge movement towards disclosure. The number of whistleblowers coming out right now, it's amazing. There's no doubt that we have these craft, and not just one or two, of them. Hundreds is what we're talking about, and they're spread out, on numerous bases. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is full to the brim with them. I know Edwards is. I know Area 51 is. There's Norton Air Force Base in California. There's a base in Arizona. So we have, hundreds of these craft, hundreds of these bodies, and it's a crisis, really. I'm not exactly sure how this whole disclosure movement is going to go down in the end, but
I think that's a key word, Preston. Crisis. It really is a crisis.
Oh, it really is in a huge way. I'm not sure if disclosure is going to come voluntarily on the government's parts. I'm not even sure if the United States is going to be the first one who does it, because certainly, Brazil and France and Canada and England have made bigger strides in terms of releasing some of this information than here in the United States. But yeah, it's a constitutional crisis for us here. Certainly power has been usurped illegally. There's a international cabal of, the 1%ers are the people who are in control of this stuff, in control of the technology, who aren't giving up their power and are kind of painted themselves into a corner. And I think we're at sort of a standoff here, where the UFOs are pushing towards disclosure. And by that I mean we've got these waves of sightings over crowded areas, such as, like the Phoenix Lights, is a perfect example, or the sightings over Mexico City, during the eclipse in the early 1990s, or the Hudson Valley wave, or the Belgian UFO wave, or things like this. UFOs are putting on what amounts to a publicity campaign.
Sure, it's like a display, yeah.
Right? And so I think that's what they're pushing towards, and we're going to see this happen again. And they're going to come over a major city center or some area, and they're not going to go away. And our government, or whoever, the secret government who's ever in control of this stuff, is going to be forced to play their hand if they want to remain in control of the situation, in any way at all. I mean, the evidence for UFOs, proof of them, is really in the public arena, if you're only willing to search it out.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think it's a constitutional crisis more than specifically. I mean, you can look at it this way. Even if the American government, that is, wanted to disclose, I don't think they could, because, like you say, they've painted themselves into a corner. And even if the nature of the surreptitious clandestine activities wasn't that bad, in other words, it was just a technology thing and there was no hybrids, they still wouldn't disclose, even if it was just a moderate thing that they had to disclose, because they basically have lied to the American public. And the American, from what I remember and what I know of history, of American history, is that's just not on. I mean, it's going against everything that America stands for, and it's a major crisis. It's a constitutional crisis. Now, governments in UK and Europe and everywhere else, from IMA, it's a different ball game. It's a different set of scenarios. And I think, it's got to be other countries. And even in the face of every other country disclosing, I still don't think America's going to disclose, because they can't. It's a crisis.
It's definitely a problem. It's really interesting when you look at it, because there are a number of very high level officials, including presidents, for Pete's sake, who have said that they've seen UFOs and UFOs are real, and have made, really positive statements about UFOs. Ronald Reagan made 3 or 4 really revealing statements about UFOs, and what would we do if there was an alien threat suddenly among us. And he saw a UFO, as did, President Carter. There's a number of senators who have seen UFO. Governor Fife Symington of Arizona, he came out of the UFO closet not too long ago, said he saw the Phoenix Lights. So there has been disclosure by major government officials. It's going that way, and it can't, once the cat is out of the bag, you can't put it back in. So disclosure is going to happen. The civil rights movement is a good example. I think that there's a lot of resistance to that as well, but it happened anyway because you couldn't stop it. It was the way things were trending. And that's what's going to happen. It's going to bust wide open. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be very messy. Some heads are going to roll, but the information is going to come out sooner or later. Even if it takes, a revolution type event, but we're edging towards a type of civil war even if this doesn't start to come clean.
I think that's the key thing as well. I mean, that's where it's heading, and I think perhaps the government cover-up is to bide their time. They're gathering their resources and their momentum in case there is this revolution. But the irony is the revolution is coming because of the government cover-up. It's not coming because, I don't think people are all going to drop their brains out and go crazy because we have UFOs above us. I don't think it's going to be like that. I think people will go, okay, well, fine, what are they doing? I don't think people are going to go into mass hysteria like the government makes out.
Right. I agree. There was that incident, the Orson Welles' War of the Worlds
what a test that was,
broadcast, which, caused panic and I think gives people the impression that if there was some sort of disclosure that people would run for the hills or grab their gun or, head towards the nearest church and start praying. And I don't think that's what's going to happen. I always like to tell people that that was a broadcast that was designed to inspire fear. Mm-hmm. And that's not, I don't think, how disclosure is going to go down. I think it's going to be step by step. But, I'm fully expecting to see the Roswell craft in a museum, before I depart this planet.
Wow.
'Cause I just can't imagine it going any other way. We have so many people with cameras, now on their cell phones, and the amount of evidence coming out. I mean, we have implant removal cases. We have some 5,000 plus landing trace cases. We have radar return cases. We have an enormous amount of medical evidence. 1,000 cases of injuries from UFOs and a couple of hundred of healing cases. So the evidence is definitely out there. It's just a matter of it kind of being pushed mainstream and throwing some real money at this. Right now, people who are abducted by aliens can't turn to the government. They can't turn to the police. They can't turn to the Air Force. They go to MUFON, or the National UFO Reporting Center, or find their way to someone like me. Mm-hmm. And I'm just a bookkeeper from Reseda. I'm certainly no one special or influential, and it's a real shame that this has been thrown in my lap because it's such a hugely important issue. I think that if the UFOs disclosure was put forth, it could solve not only the economic crisis, by giving us free energy, it could solve also as well the environmental crisis, with global warming and all of that, and for that matter, the economic crisis, mm-hmm. which is, I think, to a large extent, engineered. So I don't know. This stuff has to come out. It's funny, James, because if you ask people if they believe in UFOs, you get about a 50-50 answer. According to most polls, about 50% of people believe in UFOs. But if you ask them if they think the government is covering it up, it's much closer to 60 or 70%. So more people actually think our government is covering this up than actually believe in UFOs.
Wow.
So go figure that.
That's incredible statistics. I guess the big thing is then, where does it leave us today? Where are we at today? I mean, disclosure is the big issue. I think what you also alluded to is that there's a display. I don't think the military, maybe this is the way to finish up, I don't think the military could have foreseen the UFOs with their bravado giving us a display trying to force the disclosure. I don't think the military seen that one coming.
Right. No, I think you're right. I think to a certain extent they're a little bit afraid of UFOs, even though they haven't really shown any overtly hostile behavior. But from a military standpoint, when you see these things hovering over our nuclear installations, shutting down our missiles, hovering over power dams and, turning causing major power outages and things like this, they have the ability to paralyze our society pretty darn quick. So I think that they see some hostility towards that, and they're a little bit afraid of it. But if you look at the UFO reports, in their entirety, there are no real cases of hostility. You don't have a lot of cases of what I would call sadism or sadistic type of behavior. And so overall, I'm very positive on the outlook. When someone's taken on board a UFO, they're usually physically examined. That's the most common thing. But second after that they're given messages of nuclear proliferation, warnings about upcoming environmental disasters. They're very interested in alternative healing and spiritual development and this type of thing. Mm-hmm. So I think this points to some of the best parts of what it means to be human. And I think that's what we're going to see is more of this sort of stuff coming out. The future, the whole situation is so volatile right now. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I think we're going to see something big.
You said something very key there, and that there's a spiritual essence to this. That there are people taken on board, and they're talking about spiritual evolution and many other things. But
right.
I think if there is disclosure, and everybody realizes, the whole public realizes there's something above us in the skies, and it's fully accepted. I don't see the religions all failing. I think people are going to spiritually grow. I think they're going to go, oh, our cosmos is a lot bigger than we thought, and we know it now. I think there's going to be a spiritual evolution rather than religious chaos.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happens to people who have close encounters. This is, a major theme that certainly I've come across is people are really spiritually transformed. Even by a simple sighting. I've had a number of people tell me they become very, very spiritual as a result of their encounter. And even religious people become more spiritual and less kind of codified and restricted in their thinking. And no, you're right. I don't think it's going to paralyze religion. This was one of the reasons apparently why we have not disclosed earlier. There was apparently a meeting at Edwards Air Force Base with President Eisenhower and some live ETs in which they were pushing for disclosure. And we didn't want to do it because we were afraid of it would upset our society and religion and things like this. But, we've handled a lot of crises before, everything from nuclear stuff to AIDS to global warming now. And UFOs are definitely going to be one of these big things that really change the way people view themselves in the entire world. And I think it's coming soon. A big change in that regard.
Another great point is, Preston, the world's full of diplomacy anyway, as we speak. There's diplomacy going on everywhere. And, there's people flexing their muscles, and there's people killing each other, and there's people, I'm talking about nations now, but there's also diplomacy, and diplomacy is always sitting there to prevent, the worst outcome.
Right. Well, I think one of the reasons that we haven't had disclosure already is our own fault, our own warlike behavior, our own prejudices, and things like this. And I think to a certain extent, ETs are wiser than to just land, and scare the wits out of people. So they're doing it kind of at a grassroots level. Mm-hmm. And, I think that's what we're looking towards. And I don't see any reason why it wouldn't bring us together, rather than, separate us or cause, chaos. To me, it would be a wonderful kind of enlightening thing for, all of humanity.
I had heard reports that there was lasers being shot up at the UFOs to try and take them down. I'm not sure how old this reports are, that they are other technologies used to try and bring these guys down.
Right.
Perhaps they want to take the technology. Maybe there was aggression in the past.
Absolutely. We have fired at them. I've written extensively about this. And there's a number of cases where we shot at UFOs and tried to shoot them down, and a few cases, where they have responded in kind, shooting back. Not a whole lot of cases where they shoot first. Really not at all. Only the reverse. But there's a lot of cases where people have shot guns at UFOs, never been able to bring one down. But a few cases where people have used particle, in particular government, have used particle beam weapons and this laser type weapons to shoot these things down. And I think that's a huge mistake. At one point we had to stop doing this because we were losing so many pilots and airplanes to the UFOs. So that we pulled back quite a bit at one point. I'm not exactly sure if this is still going on or not. It's my understanding that to some extent it is. But boy, I think it's a big mistake.
Well, Preston, we're at the top of the hour. Before we wrap things up, please take a moment to give out your website where people can read about you, your previous work, which is quite a wealth of information that you've already provided in other books. Tell us where people can get copies of your books and your website, please.
Oh, yeah, thanks, James. My website is actually my name, Preston Dennett. That's 2 N's, 2 T's. If you just Google my name, it should take you right there. The actual address is prestondennett.weebly.com. And yeah, I have all my books up there on my website in excerpts. And if you're interested in contacting me, if you have a story you'd like to share or a question, I'm always interested in hearing from people, and you can contact me through my website. And yeah, I've got 18 books now and more on the way. So very excited about the future of this subject. And yeah, thanks a lot for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's great to have you here, Preston. It's great to reach out to you. Is the UFOs over Arizona released yet?
No, that's the latest one. It should be out, if not the end of this year, the beginning of next year. So just finished it and sending it off to the publishers. And I got another one after that and more in the works. So yeah, I'm keeping busy. I'm not going to let this subject go. Yeah.
I see that, I'm going to have to get you back on sometime anyway, Preston, to talk about other paranormal stuff outside the ufology field, because you have quite a diverse research, and very interesting to talk to you today, Preston. And I think you have a great outlook on this too. It's a positive outlook and it's a realistic outlook. And although, yes, you've gone in kicking and screaming with a skeptic, you're sitting there trying to get through this information for the benefit of, people, for the benefit of humanity. And I like to see that. So it's great, and I commend you on that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, like I said, I think this is a really important subject. It's one I take seriously, and it's going to have a huge impact on all our lives, whether you believe in this stuff or not. They'll find out sooner or later.
Okay, Preston, take care, brother, and talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks very much. Land means that the population of Nevada is kind of restricted to just a few major city centers. So in terms of UFOs, what we have is a lot of military encounters. And conversely, when people see UFOs, it's pretty much over or outside of, Las Vegas or one of these other major cities, or also driving down these lonely desert highways. Got a lot of accounts of people encountering UFOs while driving late at night through this desert area.
Tell us a little bit about the MUFON activity that you do. For those not familiar with MUFON, give us a little backdrop to that and how you got involved with MUFON.
Right. I actually was skeptical of UFOs and anything paranormal for that matter, and heard a report on the news about this sighting over Alaska and didn't believe it for a second. This was way back in 1986. And I thought, well, this pilot's lying. He's hallucinating. He's certainly not seeing a UFO. The report on the news was very tongue-in-cheek. They kind of joked nervously about it and didn't say much else. I found out later there was radar returns and quite a bit of evidence to support this case. Numerous witnesses on board.
I'm sure there was many UFO cases, but why the Alaskan case? Why did that grab your attention so much?
I'm not exactly sure. It turned out it was a very major case. It's one every year. I think there's maybe 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 cases that are just so big that they do get media coverage. The vast majority don't, obviously. But this one did, and that surprised me because this was on the evening news. And, I had never really heard that before. I'd heard a few UFO reports throughout the years on, paranormal programs and things like that, but never really on the evening news. I was a pretty young man at the time as well, like early 20s. So, I don't know. It just really grabbed me, cause this was a serious pilot. He was a commercial pilot. And, again, the news report was tongue in cheek, but when I found out about it, the entire case. Wow, it turned out to be a really huge case. So it was just really the luck of the draw. I made the mistake, I think, of asking the people I knew. And that's where it kind of took a left turn into the twilight zone.
Do you find anything has changed today, Preston?
The craft, I'm browned. So I knew none of this, but it interested me enough to start asking my friends and family, people I worked with, what they thought of this ridiculous pilot. And I got a real shock. I have to tell you, James, this was not good news. I found out that my brother had seen a UFO. My sister-in-law saw a UFO with her friends. I had a couple of friends who had missing time, coworkers who had seen UFOs, one who also had missing time. So it really hit home for me, and this is how I got involved. I started picking up books looking for an explanation, and the books pretty much said that UFOs were real. I still couldn't believe it. So I started interviewing people, joining UFO groups, and found MUFON, which is the Mutual UFO Network. It's the largest citizen UFO group in the United States, with several thousand members. And I took a field investigator test eventually, and I became a field investigator for them, and just kind of snowballed from there. Before I knew it, I was writing articles for newspapers and magazines, appearing on radio, put together my first book, and just have not looked back.
Tell us about the Alaska case. What was so significant about that drew your attention?
States, and I was shocked. It was actually 86%, now, which is most of it. So this obviously, I think, has an effect on how UFOs are perceived in that state. For example, I did UFOs over California, another book, and UFOs over New York, and found that each state kind of has its own flavor, if you will, and its own way of kind of dealing with the whole UFO phenomenon. And Nevada, boy, it's definitely unique in that regard.
Why does such a high percentage of government-owned land? Is it just prime real estate for clandestine activities? Is it like desert land? Is it perfect?
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail exactly on the head. Nevada is a very desert area, and at one time it was extremely remote. And this is why I think Area 51 is located in Nevada. We know this is true because it's a very, very remote area. And by the way, Area 51 is extremely large. I think much larger than most people realize. It takes up an enormous amount of space. And what we have is a situation where, most of Nevada is being owned by federal. Happy to be here.
Great to have you here, Preston. I think I first came across your work in Atlantis Rising when I first recognized the name, and great to have you on the show today. We're going to talk about your latest book, UFOs over Nevada. I haven't said much about the book. It says it all itself, really, but this is, staggering when I've, come across this, and I realize how much federal land is in Nevada, known as the Silver State. Tell us a little bit about this as a premise, first of all. This is incredibly interesting, just on its own.
Right, yeah, it really surprised me. When I started writing this book, I knew that there was a lot of federally owned land in Nevada, but it turns out it's got more federally owned land than any other state in the United States.